Donald Trump deported 4 children that were U.S. citizens. Wait, 4 kids? How? I don't know, but it was done without due process, and one of the 4 children was this 2-year-old that has metastatic cancer, and she was deported without any of her medicine or access to her doctor. Who would deport a 2-year-old child with cancer? A federal judge in Louisiana, Terry Doughty, who was appointed by Trump to be a judge, is the one that did it. Okay, all of that's quite horrific, but what else is going on that I need to know? Dude, apparently Temu and Shein are raising their prices because of the president's tariffs. Oh no, where are all the girlies gonna get their fast fashion now? I don't know, but it's not gonna be from Temu or Shein because their prices are going up by more than 350%. That's like really high. Also, Amazon sellers have hiked up the prices of their merchandise to combat the tariffs as well. Well, color me surprised. I would if I could afford crayons in this economy. These boomers want us to go back to making our own products, but they don't understand that there's too many Americans for us to do that. And some of the stuff we can't make or the materials we need are in other countries. Exactly, and now we've ticked off all of those other countries. I found an old list of unhinged things that my mom did, and I'm gonna share them with you because some of you don't know what I used to do on this channel, and that was talk about my insane mom that I had to live with for 17 years. 1, she beat my doorknob with a hammer to get into the room and then me. Number 2, after me, she tricked the police into thinking that my dad was the aggressor, even though my dad is the one that called 911. Oh, and then the police made me hug her, even though she just tried to me. Number 3, one time she went into my room and stole all of the money that I'd been saving. Thanks. 4, she put me in childhood beauty pageants for 12 years and let weirdos rape my body. Number 5, she threw a glass cup at my brother's head. Number 6, when she would go up to my school and yell at my teachers and embarrass me. 7 is the fact that she would also email my teachers or my coach or the athletic director with really poor grammar and just rudeness, and it would be very embarrassing, and then I'd become a target the rest of the year. Number 8 is how she would demand my Facebook password and then log into it not to check and see what I was doing, but pretend to be me. I'm talking commenting on people's posts or messaging their parents rude stuff as a way to finally say what she wants to say, but then, oh, it's a kid saying it, so I can't get in trouble. Number 9 is she drove 2 hours all the way to my college, even though I was no contact with her, hadn't seen her in 4 years at this point, just to drive up and down every street looking for my car so she could know what college house I lived at and bother me. 10 is she would judge my friends' looks and their home lives, even though their home lives aren't their fault, and then make rude comments about them. She would literally call the school and tell teachers to watch who I was sitting with, or don't put me in class next year with so-and-so because she didn't want me around them, and it made it really hard to keep friends. A bonus one because it was kind of funny. To get back at my dad during the divorce, she decided to throw part of his kettle in the woods so he couldn't make coffee the next day, and then the bottom part of it, she hid that in the closet. So when my dad found the piece of it in the closet, he couldn't use it because the other half was still missing. Like, imagine being so petty that you separate a kettle from the bottom part and hide it in 2 different locations. That way, no matter what part they find, they won't have the whole thing. Another time she was mad at my dad and she was like, I'm gonna turn the breaker off so you can't watch TV. And he's like, you better not do that, Linda. And she's like, oh, you just wait. But then it didn't happen for a while. So we thought, oh, she's not gonna flick the breaker. But then right at the best part of the movie, the climax in The Conjuring where the lady's getting levitated on the ceiling, my mom listened for our reactions and then flicked the breaker right at that moment. So she was waiting for the right moment so she could ruin it extra good. And that's exactly what she said. Oh, I was just listening for when you guys started screaming the most so I could ruin the best part of the film. What a bitch. And a genius. It's middle school and it's the book fair. Oh my god, 96. What's 96? $96 for the entire Harry Potter book series in hardcover. Okay. That's just an insane amount of money to spend on some dead tree. Maybe if you're like poor or something. I just feel in general that's a lot of money. I mean, you could just go to the library and rent it for free, right? I think only someone that's white trash would find $100 to be expensive. Okay, we're literally 12. It is a lot of money, unless you have a job or something, Gabby. I don't, but my parents do, because my dad's a lawyer and my mom, like, works at the bank. Okay, well, some people's parents can't work at all because they're disabled, like my dad, so not everybody's situation is the same. So you are poor then? No, I mean, maybe a little. I'm still gonna get stuff from the book fair, just not that set of books. I could get it if I wanted it. Then get it. No one's stopping you. Well, I don't even like to read, but maybe I could ask for it, and then I could give it to somebody that's, like, in need. The only thing I need right now is some patience, or she's gonna need a new face. Hey, Mom. What? I'm busy. You think $96 is a lot for 7 books? I don't care what costs that much, I am not buying it. No, I know, I'm not asking for it. I just wanted to know if that was a lot, because this girl at school acted like it wasn't a lot. What do you mean, this girl at school? This girl, Gabby, at school. I was surprised that it cost $96 for the Harry Potter series, and she said that it's only expensive if you're poor. Well, Gabby sounds like she has a smart little mouth. And someone needs to teach her how to shut it. I'm gonna go up to the school tomorrow and I'm gonna talk to your teacher. I'm gonna make sure you're not sitting anywhere near that stuck-up little pig-faced priss. Right, because I was thinking something similar to that.
Who's that one friend who's just freaky for no reason? You know the one? Too comfortable, too unfiltered, and way too bold. They're not just a person, they're a walking red flag and proud of it. Always making the weirdest comments at the worst possible moments. You'll be having a normal conversation, and out of nowhere they drop something that makes the whole group go, yo, what? They flirt with everyone, everywhere, with zero shame. Teachers, waiters, your mom. No one is safe. They'll say the wildest things with a straight face and act like you're the one being dramatic for reacting. They live for chaos, send you unhinged memes at 3 a.m. and treat thirst traps like it's their full-time job. And somehow, they always end up talking about something that should have stayed in their head. Tag that freaky friend and send them this video, but fair warning, they'll probably repost it and say, this is literally me. Who's that one friend who's just freaky for no reason? You know the one? Too comfortable, too unfiltered, and way too bold. They're not just a person, they're a walking red flag and proud of it. Always making the weirdest comments at the worst possible moments. You'll be having a normal conversation, and out of nowhere they drop something that makes the whole group go, yo, what? They flirt with everyone, everywhere, with zero shame. Teachers, waiters, your mom. No one is safe. They'll say
Have you ever accidentally joined the wrong group chat and just stayed? A few months ago, I got added to a group chat called Wedding Squad. I assumed it was for my cousin's wedding. The names looked familiar. There was a Jess, a Tori, even a Mike. All names I vaguely recognized from family stuff, so I stayed. At first, it was just casual. Dress choices, travel plans, someone asking if they should bring deviled eggs. I liked the vibe. No drama, lots of memes. I even chimed in once with, we're not doing a bouquet toss, right? Because last time I caught it and tore my ACL, everyone laughed. Jess even replied, classic you, cool. I was fitting in. Weeks go by, and I'm deep in this wedding now. I'm voting on flower arrangements, helping plan the bachelorette weekend, and arguing that Mike should not wear Crocs with his suit. Then one day, someone finally asks, wait, who's this number? Silence. I panicked and said, it's me, you know, from the cabin? Jess asked, wait, are you Laura's cousin? I replied, no. Should I be? Turns out I was never supposed to be in the group. Whole different family, whole different wedding. They'd meant to add a different Ben, but here's the kicker. They invited me anyway. I showed up, sat between two uncles I'd never met, danced with Aunt Marcy, even gave a toast. No one questioned it. Laura hugged me at the end and said, Ben number 2, you're one of us now. Still in the group chat, by the way. We're planning a baby shower now.
Signs that you are becoming a very lonely person. If you raise your finger 4 times or more, you need to change immediately. Let's start. 1. Raise your finger if you like staying locked in your room. 2. Raise your finger if you spend the whole day on your phone without realizing how much time has passed. 3. Raise your finger if you prefer animals over people. 4. Raise your finger if it's been a long time since you last saw the third person that appears when you press the green button below, then tap more. 5. Raise your finger if you've never been in a relationship. 6. Raise your finger if you only receive notifications from apps. 7. Raise your finger if you have no friends, but you know it's okay. 8. Raise your finger if you prefer staying home rather than going out with people. Comment how many times you raised your finger, and remember that sometimes it's better to be alone than in bad company.
Police officers, what criminal actually impressed you with their criminal skills? This kid Marcus at my old high school was the ghost dealer. Everyone knew he sold weed, but nobody could prove it. Not the cops, not the principal, nobody. They searched his car weekly, tore apart his locker, even brought drug dogs to school 3 different times. Nothing. Marcus would just smile and wave like he was running for student council. Kids would get caught with weed and straight up say, I bought it from Marcus. He'd actually encourage them to tell the truth. Yeah, tell them I sold it to you. See what happens. Still couldn't catch him. The administration went nuclear. They installed motion sensors in his locker, had teachers follow him between classes. Principal Johnson even called Marcus's mom, thinking maybe she'd cooperate. She laughed and said, good luck catching him. Kid's smarter than all of us. Marcus was this weird combination of obvious and invisible. He'd wear tie-dye shirts and listen to reggae music in the hallways. Everyone knew what he was about. But he was also in honors classes, tutored kids after school, and helped organize charity drives. Security caught Marcus talking to Tommy Rodriguez in the bathroom. Tommy walks out with weed 5 minutes later. They search Marcus immediately. Nothing. Marcus explains he was just borrowing a pencil, shows them the pencil in his pocket. Tommy backs up his story perfectly. They saw Marcus hand something to Sarah Chen by the vending machines. Looked exactly like a drug deal. They searched both kids, found nothing on Marcus. Sarah had a granola bar. The principal was convinced the granola bar was somehow involved and had it tested at the police lab. Cost the school $800. It was just a regular granola bar. Marcus started leaving notes in his locker for investigators. Thanks for keeping my stuff organized. And did you find my secret yet? Keep looking. The janitor found them hilarious. Principal Johnson did not. They brought in a police dog named Rex. This dog had found drugs in cars, houses, everywhere. Rex sniffed Marcus's backpack, locker, car, even his shoes. Rex found nothing. The dog handler was embarrassed. Marcus threw a party when Rex visited, made a sign that said welcome Rex, and brought dog treats. Rex loved Marcus and wouldn't even search properly because he wanted to play play fetch. The school tried everything. They made Marcus empty his pockets before entering, searched his car in the parking lot during class, even had a teacher accidentally bump into him to see if anything fell out. Marcus would cooperate with everything. He'd spread his arms wide during searches and say, "Check every..."
People who went missing, what happened? In high school, I was that kid everyone expected to become a doctor. 4.0 GPA, president of the science club, and parents who had my whole life mapped out. But one morning, I just couldn't take it anymore. I packed a backpack with some clothes, grabbed my savings of $2,147, and walked out the front door instead of going to school. My parents had been fighting all night about my future. Mom wanted me at Stanford studying medicine. Dad insisted on Harvard pre-med. Neither asked what I wanted. That morning, Dad had slammed a Harvard brochure on my cereal bowl, making milk splash all over my shirt. That was my breaking point. I left my phone on my desk, bought a bus ticket to Seattle, and didn't look back. I knew my parents would track my phone, so I left it behind. I'd been researching this escape for months, reading about how to disappear and start fresh. In Seattle, I found this tiny room above a bookstore. The owner, Rita, was this sweet old lady who didn't ask many questions when I paid 3 months' rent in cash. I told her I was 18, showed her a fake ID I'd bought online, and she just nodded. I got a job washing dishes at this small Italian restaurant. The owner, Tony, paid me under the table and let me eat whatever was left at closing. He'd lost his son years ago and kind of took me under his wing. Every night, he'd teach me how to cook different pasta dishes after we closed up. Meanwhile, my face was plastered all over the news back home. Missing honor student. My parents offered a $50,000 reward. They hired private investigators, posted my photo everywhere, but I'd changed my appearance, dyed my hair dark, started wearing glasses, changed how I dressed. Nobody looks twice at a dishwasher. 6 months went by. I was actually happy for the first time in years. I'd discovered I loved cooking. Tony was teaching me everything he knew. The restaurant became my home. Rita would bring me books from her store and we'd talk about them during my breaks. Then one day, this guy came into the restaurant. He ordered spaghetti and kept staring.
He told a room full of people I wet myself as a kid, so I made sure his bladder was never safe again. If you've ever peed yourself as a kid, congrats. You're part of the human race. If someone still talks about it decades later in front of 30 people in a charcuterie board, yeah, that's how you make a villain. His name was Brett. Of course it was. Brett, the kind of guy who still high-fives during Jiggy Jiggy and calls his abs his marketing team. We'd been roommates in college, then co-workers in adulthood, then barely friends kept alive by shared sports bets and convenience. And I was fine with that, until Brett decided to weaponize my past like a stand-up comic on open mic night. It was a Friday, team hangout, work-sponsored wine, everyone loosened up. Someone brought up childhood embarrassment, and before I could blink, Brett was on stage, figuratively, but only just. Oh dude, you should have seen this guy at sleepaway camp. Woke up in a wet sleeping bag, thought it was dew. We called him Sprinkler the rest of the week. Everyone laughed, except me. I just smiled, because I knew something Brett didn't. I am really, really good at silent revenge. Like ladder busting levels of good. It started small, subtle. Brett was the kind of guy who had to be hydrated. Gotta fuel the beast, he'd say, drinking his third green smoothie by 10 a.m. So I bought him a custom water bottle. It had his name engraved on it and everything, but I modified the lid. A hidden pinhole leak. Small enough to not notice right away, but just enough to leave a mysterious dark spot growing slowly across his khakis every time he sat down. At first, he thought he spilled. The second time, confused. The third time, dude, what the hell is wrong with my pants? I shrugged. Maybe your bladder's haunted. Then I installed a little device under his chair at work. A white noise machine that played a soft, rhythmic trickling sound, like a stream, like rain, like someone slowly pouring water into a cup. For hours, he shifted uncomfortably, stood up every 15 minutes. Then I added another feature, random toilet flushes. Through a hidden Bluetooth speaker I planted in the corner of the office. Always faint, always near him. Coworkers started noticing. Brett, are you okay? You good, man? You've been running to the bathroom a lot. Did you spill something again? He started wearing darker pants, started avoiding tight circles of people. But I wasn't done. Next phase, sound association. I built a playlist called Focus Flow and shared it with the team. Lofi beats, gentle synth, and every fifth track, a high-quality recording of someone peeing into a porcelain bowl. Brett, ever the productivity bro, listened to it constantly. He peed 6 times in one morning. I counted. Then came the desk prank. I swapped his office chair pad with one I rigged to be slightly warm. Not hot, just suspiciously body temperature. He'd sit, freeze, then whisper. I even caught him once sneaking into the restroom just to check his underwear. And the grand finale, company retreat, weekend lodge, shared bunks, the same setup where he told my story. I waited till everyone was asleep, then snuck into his bag and replaced his alarm tone with a custom audio file. What did it play? Hey Brett, you're dreaming of waterfalls again. Better wake up. You might wet the bed like your friend did at camp. Oh wait, he shot up, looked around, and right then, I poured a water bottle just under his blanket. He screamed. Everyone woke up, people laughed. Dude, someone whispered. Did you pee the bed? He tried to explain, tried to show his dry boxers, but perception is poison. They called him Leaky for the rest of the weekend. He tried getting revenge once, tried to mess with my locker, but I had backup plans. Hidden water balloons, rice in his shoes, faint baby crying sounds outside his door at 3 a.m. He stopped after a week, never brought up the camp story again, never laughed about other people's childhoods either. He tried to embarrass me with one memory, so I made sure every drop he heard made him question his own pants. What's the dumbest thing you've been arrested for? So technically, I've been arrested once. Not for fighting, not for stealing, not even for public indecency, although that one was close. I got arrested for jaywalking, which sounds simple until you hear the full story, because somehow the entire situation escalated from mild inconvenience to I'm in handcuffs eating a stale granola bar in the back of a police car. Let me explain. I was in a new city visiting a friend. Downtown area, real nice. Fancy little coffee shops, overpriced candle stores, and one-way streets that make absolutely no sense unless you're a GPS satellite. I was late. My phone was at 4%. I had iced coffee in one hand, half a bagel in the other, and I needed to cross the street. The light was red, but there were no cars. Not one. 1. It looked like a deleted scene from The Walking Dead. So I did what any normal, functioning adult would do. I crossed, like a criminal, like a menace to society. Apparently, the city I was in doesn't play games, because out of nowhere, like he was hiding behind a trash can waiting for his moment, this cop steps into the street and goes, "Hey, you just jaywalked." I laughed. I thought he was joking. I said, "Okay, cool, but what's your high score?" He didn't laugh. This man looked me dead in the eyes and said, "ID now." Bro, what? You want to see my papers over crossing a street during an apocalypse-level traffic gap? I handed him my ID. He scanned it like he was checking for war crimes. Then he goes, "You've got an unpaid parking ticket from 2 years ago in another state." I blinked. That can't be right. I don't even remember where I parked yesterday. Apparently that didn't matter, because now it wasn't just jaywalking. It was failure to respond to a summons, aka I was now a fugitive in the dumbest legal system in North America. I laughed again. Bad move. He said, "Sir, put your hands behind your back." I said, "For crossing the street?" He said, "And for the ticket." I said, "From 2 years ago? In Wisconsin?" Yup. So now I'm standing on a sidewalk, hands cuffed behind my back, holding a half-eaten bagel between 2 fingers like it's evidence in a crime drama. People are walking by staring like I just robbed a daycare. One guy whispered, "What did he do?" Another said, "Probably murder." And the cop goes, "Jaywalking," and they all laughed. I get put in the back of the police car. My iced coffee is still sitting on the curb like it's mourning me. The officer drives me to the station. He's explaining the paperwork like he's reading me bedtime stories. You'll be booked, processed, maybe held overnight if the fine isn't cleared. Overnight. For walking too confidently across a dead street. We get to the station. They search me. They take my shoelaces. Bro, I'm not trying to escape. I just wanted to meet my friend for lunch. And you know what the worst part was? There was a guy in the holding cell already. Huge dude. Tattoos everywhere. Looked like he eats drywall for breakfast. He looks at me and goes, "What you in for?" I said, "Jaywalking." He paused. Then he goes, "Damn, you dangerous." I spent 4 hours sitting on a bench while the world's slowest admin tried to figure out how to process and arrest this dumb. At one point I asked if I could call my friend. They handed me the phone like it was made of gold and said, "One call." I called my friend. He laughed so hard he hung up. Finally, the cop comes back and goes, "You're being released. Someone paid your fine." I said, "Was it my friend?" He said, "Nope, your mom, my mom." This woman got a call saying her grown son was in jail, and without asking a single question, she paid the fine and then texted me, "Don't talk to me." So I walk out of the station, shoelaceless, humiliated, emotionally broken. But before I left, I did something petty. The next morning, I came back with my dog, Kevin. Kevin is 16 pounds of attitude, fur, and emotional support trauma. And guess what Kevin did the second we got to the police station? He dropped a steamy little justice nugget right on the sidewalk. I didn't rush him. I didn't stop him. I just stood there and whispered, "Do it for freedom, soldier." And right on cue, the same officer from yesterday walked out. Guess what he stepped in? Democracy dumpling, constitutional cocoa, liberty loaf, whatever you want to call it. His shoe found it. He slipped, flailed, and face planted like karma had a scheduling alert. And I locked eyes with him from across the street, legally crossing again, and said, "Should have checked for landmines, officer." Then Kevin and I strutted off into the sunset, victorious, undefeated, and slightly banned from downtown for the foreseeable future.
What's the weirdest way you accidentally became the villain? So apparently I'm banned from family game night. Not for cheating, not for yelling, not even for flipping the board. No, I'm banned for emotionally manipulating the dice. Let me explain. Every year, my cousins and I do this family weekend thing. It's basically 3 days of group meals, fake smiles, and pretending we don't all secretly hate each other's playlists. And the only thing that keeps me from combusting out of boredom is game night. So I brought this game, dice-based, a little chaotic, nothing crazy. It's like Monopoly and emotional trauma had a baby. Everyone agrees to play. We all sit around the table. Cousins, uncles, one random step-something who only shows up for snacks. And I'm not even trying to win. I just want one activity where no one's arguing about who double-dipped the hummus. Game starts. I'm rolling pretty well. Not suspiciously well. Just slightly too lucky for comfort well. First few rounds, clean, casual. Then round 5 hits. I roll the exact number I need to land on the steal all their coins space. Cousin Jake's face drops like I just took his tax refund. He starts side-eyeing me like I've been cooking the dice in the microwave all afternoon. Then round 7, I roll a double 6. Move right into the skip everyone's turn tile. That's when the accusations start. There's no way you rolled that naturally. Why do the dice like you so much? He's manipulating the board energy. Board energy? Ma'am, it's cardboard and bad lighting. I laugh it off. I say, "Y'all are just mad you landed on pay rent." Apparently, that's when I became public enemy number 1. Cousin Ava slams her cards down and says, "You're gaslighting the dice." I ask her if she's okay. She says I have domineering wrist posture when I roll. Domineering wrist posture. What does that even mean? Am I seducing the dice? Are they emotionally vulnerable? Should I be whispering, "You're valid" into the cup before I roll? It gets worse. Cousin Derek suddenly announces that he never trusted me as a game night presence. I said, "What does that mean?" He says, "You have main character energy, and it's unsettling. Sorry for giving narrative arc during Uno." Then, out of nowhere, Aunt Rachel stands up. She's not even playing, and goes, "I felt something shift in the room when you picked up the dice. Something dark." Dark? It's plastic and probability, not witchcraft. So now I'm defending myself like I'm on trial at The Hague. I didn't do anything. They're like, "That's exactly what someone who controls outcomes would say." I'm like, "What do you want me to do? Lose on purpose? Cry every time I roll high?" Cousin Jake grabs the dice, holds them to his ear like he's listening for secrets, and goes, "These feel manipulated." I say, "Okay, now you're emotionally projecting onto geometry." Nobody laughs. Apparently, sarcasm is also a crime now. Then comes the final straw. It's my turn. I roll a 4. That lands me on the make one player skip their next turn space. I pick Derek. Fair. He's in the lead. He stands up, pushes his chair back like he's about to deliver a TED Talk. He says, "This isn't about the game anymore. This is about energy abuse." Energy abuse. He points at me like I'm a warlock who hacks the Wi-Fi. He says, "You're making the dice work for you. You don't play. You influence." At this point, I'm done. I just put the dice down and say, "Do you guys want to talk about your control issues, or should I keep winning quietly?" They gasp. Apparently, I summoned the demon of honesty. And that's when my aunt walks in, the actual host of game night, and says, "What's going on?" Jake stands up and says, "He's emotionally manipulating the dice again." Again? As if this is a known pattern. Like I was previously caught whispering threats to Yahtzee cubes behind the couch. Aunt sighs and goes, "Okay, that's it. You're not allowed to play if you can't respect the spirit of the game." The spirit of the game? What is this, Jumanji? So I get banned, officially. They tell me I'm too powerful and a corruptive influence on casual competition. I say, "That's fine. I didn't want to spend my Saturday with people who flinch when I roll above a 3 anyway." But before I left, I placed the dice gently in the center of the board. I looked Jake dead in the eyes and kissed them. The dice, not Jake. I mean, I did wink at him, just to keep things interesting. Now every time they play, they say the dice feel weird. You're welcome. Parents, what's the weirdest thing your kid tried to sneak into their school bag? It was a Tuesday. Not a normal Tuesday. A deeply cursed Tuesday. The kind where the moment your eyes open, the universe slaps you with a
Good luck, idiot. My alarm didn't go off. My dog Kevin puked on the hallway rug. I stepped in it. My coffee machine let out one final wheeze and died like it had seen too much. I had about 15 minutes to get my 7-year-old son dressed, fed, and out the door for school, which is fine, right? 7-year-olds are known for their time efficiency, emotional stability, and zero resistance to wearing socks. He was already dressed when I found him, which should have been my first red flag. He looked proud, too proud, like a man who had already accomplished something illegal before breakfast. He was zipping up his school bag when I walked in. That's when I noticed it looked heavy. Not school books heavy, not I snuck in an iPad heavy. More like I'm hiding a full turkey dinner kind of weight. Hey bud, I said, narrowing my eyes like I was in a hostage negotiation. What's in the bag? He froze. Rookie mistake. He didn't even try to lie. Just hit me with the biggest guilty smile I've ever seen in my life. Then turned and sprinted. I chased him down like he was holding state secrets, tackled him by the laundry basket, unzipped the bag. Let me break down what I found. 1. A live frog in the front pouch, just sitting there like it had paid rent, not in a container, no Tupperware, just vibes. I jumped and the frog jumped with me because obviously. 2. 3 string cheeses, not wrapped, just raw, half-warmed string cheeses clinging to each other like survivors. 3. My birth certificate, folded twice, stuffed at the bottom like it was an afterthought. I stared into the backpack like it was a portal to another dimension. He was standing next to me, grinning. His name's Jeremy, he said. He's my emotional support amphibian. Amphibian? Yeah, and the cheese is for him. You were going to feed string cheese to a frog? He paused. Well, I don't know what frogs eat. Probably dairy. Probably dairy. I asked, and the birth certificate? He shrugged like it was the most obvious thing in the world. In case the school doesn't believe I'm your kid. Why would they not believe you're my kid? He nodded with genuine concern. Because sometimes you do really cringy stuff. I wanted proof. Let's take a quick time out. This boy, this literal child, was preparing for the off chance his teacher called me embarrassing. And instead of using logic or say our matching last names, he thought the best way to prove paternity was smuggling my government-issued birth certificate into a frog sanctuary disguised as a school backpack. I took a deep breath, counted to 10, and said, "Why is the cheese warm?" Oh, I slept with it under my pillow. I didn't want Jeremy to get cold. I didn't even know who Jeremy was yet, and I already hated him. We stood in silence. I was holding a frog. There were cheese strings stuck to my fingers. The birth certificate was damp for some reason I still don't fully understand. Okay, I said. You're not bringing Jeremy, the cheese, or my legal documentation to school. Understood? He sighed, not like a kid, like a man who's been through war. Fine, but if I have a bad day, it's your fault. Flash forward. I drop him off. He walks into the building like I've personally failed him. I get to work. I'm exhausted. I smell like frog, whatever. Then around noon, I get a call from the school. Hi, this is the front office. We just wanted to check. Did you mean to pack a frog? My soul left my body. Turns out he had a backup frog. That's right. Jeremy number 2 was zipped into the side pocket. Alive. Slightly cheesed. I had to leave work, pick up the frog, sign a formal no animal transport warning, and listen to the vice principal try to explain the situation with a straight face. When I got home, I found my son on the floor drawing. Not pictures. A blueprint. A sketch of a backpack with frog compartments and a little built-in mini fridge for Jeremy's cheese supply. He looked up at me and said, "You ruined the prototype." I ruined the prototype. So now my son is grounded. My birth certificate is wrinkled. My coworkers think I run a side hustle in exotic pets. And Jeremy? Jeremy lives in the backyard now, in a makeshift frog condo made of Tupperware and popsicle sticks. Every morning my son salutes him before school like he's a tiny cheese-fueled war hero. And me? I've learned to double-check every zipper, every pouch, and every child-sized smirk. Because if this kid ever gets his hands on my passport, we're all screwed. What's the most emotionally unstable response you've gotten to a basic question? I was staying over at my friend Tessa's place for a weekend thing. Nothing fancy. Just 2 days of doing absolutely nothing with people who act like putting frozen waffles on a plate is a full meal prep routine. So Saturday rolls around. It's 5:30 p.m. I haven't eaten since noon. The house smells like someone burned a candle next to a microwave dinner. I figure, okay, we're probably about to eat soon, right? Now to be clear, I ask this so politely, like peak non-threatening tone. I walk up to Tessa and go, "Hey, do you know what time dinner is?" Not "make me dinner." Not "I'm starving and your house smells like depression." Just a simple question. Civilized. Friendly. She freezes. Looks at me like I just asked her to twerk on me and to solve world hunger with 2 spaghetti noodles and a paperclip. Then she says, and I quote, "Why do you always assume I know things?" I blink. What? She's pacing now. Pacing. In her socks, clutching a throw pillow like she's about to monologue about betrayal in a Netflix original. I say, "Sorry, I just meant like, are we ordering food? Cooking? Is someone bringing something? Like, just curious." She goes, "Yeah, well, maybe next time ask the ceiling because clearly I'm just the girl who always knows stuff." Ma'am, I asked what time the nuggets arrive. You're acting like I forced you into an unpaid therapist position. Then, because this couldn't possibly stay normal, she flops onto the couch, stares at the ceiling dramatically and mutters, "Why is it always me who has to answer everything? Girl, nobody assigned you dinner manager. You don't run a restaurant. You just happen to be the one with the Wi-Fi password and a freezer full of regret." Meanwhile, the rest of the people in the house are just vibing. One dude is watching TikToks on full volume with no headphones. Another guy is asleep with his hand in a bag of chips. And I'm sitting here feeling like I triggered a full identity crisis with 6 words. I try to lighten the mood. I go, "Okay, sorry, I'll ask the chips next time." I even point to the chip bag. She doesn't laugh. She says, "This is what I mean. You joke when things get serious." Serious? Girl, it's dinner, not a divorce deposition. Then she hits me with a kicker. "You never ask what I want to eat. It's always what's for dinner, like you expect me to plan everything." I say, "I was literally just asking what time food's happening. I don't even care what it is. I'd eat drywall at this point." She stands up, looks me in the eyes, and says, "Maybe that's the problem. Maybe if you did care, you'd know what time dinner was." This woman turned a question about macaroni timing into a TED talk on neglect. So I tap out. I back away. I go to the kitchen like, cool, I'll figure it out myself. I open the fridge, and what do I see? A pizza, fully cooked, just sitting there. Nobody said anything. Nobody served it. It was just sitting on the counter, cold, untouched, like it had been emotionally abandoned. I go, "Hey, was this the dinner?" Someone from the other room yells, "Yeah, we made that like 30 minutes ago." Tessa gasps like I just uncovered a government conspiracy. "I didn't know we were telling people about dinner." Okay, so we've gone from, why do I have to know everything, to, why didn't anyone tell anyone? What a bitch. At this point, I just grab a slice and sit down silently like a hostage negotiator on break. 10 minutes later, she sits next to me, still pouting. I offer her a piece. She looks me dead in the face and says, "I'm not hungry. I'm full of disappointment, ma'am. This is a slice of Supreme, not a betrayal." The rest of the night, she won't make eye contact with me or give my thing a foot massage, if you know what I mean. At one point, she whispers, "It's the little things that add up," and then opens Snapchat like she just dropped a confession letter. So the next morning, I wake up early and leave, quietly. Before I go, I leave her a sticky note on the fridge. It says, "What time is breakfast?" Just kidding. Ask the ceiling.
The walls in my house are too thick. Something inside them just knocked back. I first noticed it during the home inspection. The inspector tapped along the living room wall with his knuckles, frowning at the muffled, almost dead sound that came back. "These walls are unusually thick," he said, pulling out a stud finder that couldn't seem to locate any wooden framework. "Probably 18 inches, maybe more. Not standard construction for a house built in 1987. "Is that a problem?" I asked. "Not necessarily. Could be extra insulation, soundproofing, or just over-engineering. Sellers didn't mention any renovations. The previous owners had died in a car accident 6 months earlier. Their estate agent knew nothing about modifications to the house." The inspector marked it as unusual but not structurally concerning and moved on. I should have paid more attention. The house was perfect otherwise, 4 bedrooms, large kitchen, quiet neighborhood, and priced well below market value. The thick walls actually seemed like a bonus. No noise from neighbors, excellent temperature control, perfect privacy. I moved in 3 weeks later. The first knock came on a Tuesday night around 11 p.m. I was in the living room reading when I heard it, 3 deliberate raps from inside the wall behind my couch. Not pipes settling or house creaking. Distinct knocking, like someone tapping their knuckles against the inside of the drywall. I walked over and examined the wall. Solid, no visible damage or hollow spots. I knocked 3 times in the same rhythm. 3 knocks came back immediately. I stepped away from the wall, heart racing. Old houses make noise, I told myself. Expanding wood, settling foundation, quirky acoustics from the unusual construction. But when I knocked 4 times, 4 knocks responded. When I knocked in a complex pattern, knock, pause, knock, pause, knock, the same pattern echoed back from inside the wall. I called my brother Jake, who's a contractor. "Probably squirrels in the wall cavity," he said. "Or mice. They can get pretty clever about mimicking sounds. Squirrels that can count? You'd be surprised. Want me to come take a look?" Jake arrived the next evening with his tools. He tapped along the living room wall, confirming the unusual thickness, then cut a small inspection hole near the baseboard. His flashlight revealed something impossible. "There's another wall," he said, squinting into the hole. "Like, a full second wall about 8 inches behind this one. There's a gap between them." "What's in the gap?" "Can't tell. Too narrow for the camera scope." He enlarged the hole and shined his light deeper. "Wait, there's something here." He pulled out what looked like a piece of paper, yellowed and brittle with age. Unfolded, it revealed a handwritten note. "Day 127 behind the walls. Food almost gone. They don't know I'm here. Please, if you find this, I'm in the gap between the original walls and the new ones. My name is Robert Chen. They walled me in while I was unconscious. I can hear them living in my house." The note was dated 18 months ago. "What the hell?" Jake muttered. He called into the gap. "Hello? Anyone in there?" Silence. I knocked on the wall 3 times. 3 knocks came back immediately, but fainter now, coming from deeper in the wall cavity. "We need to call the police," Jake said. The police arrived within an hour. After explaining the situation, they brought in a team with thermal imaging equipment and sound detection devices. "We're picking up a heat signature," the lead officer told me after scanning the walls. "Faint, but there's definitely something warm moving inside the wall cavity." "Something alive?" "Can't say for certain. Could be an animal. Could be." He paused. "We need to open up a larger section of wall." They cut a 3-foot square opening in the living room wall, revealing the gap Jake had found. The space between the walls was about 8 inches wide, enough for a thin person to move through, but barely. The officer squeezed a camera into the gap and fed it deeper into the wall cavity. On his monitor, we watched the feed travel through a narrow corridor that seemed to run throughout the entire house. "This is elaborate," he said. "Someone built a complete secondary wall system, creating a network of spaces inside the original walls. You could move through the entire house without being seen." The camera revealed more notes wedged into corners of the gap. All written by Robert Chen, documenting his imprisonment behind the walls. According to the notes, he'd been the previous owner before the couple who died in the car accident. He'd been renovating the house when he was attacked and walled in alive. Day 89, they're using my house, sleeping in my bed, eating my food. I can hear them talking about how lucky they were to find a place so cheap. They don't know the previous owner never really left. Marcus and Ellen Hartley. The couple who died in the car accident. "We need to search this entire wall system," the officer said. It took them 6 hours to map the gap between the walls. The hidden corridors connected every room in the house, with small openings that had been disguised as electrical outlets or air vents. Someone could move unseen throughout the entire house, watching, listening. In the gap behind the master bedroom wall, they found Robert Chen. Or what was left of him. The skeletal remains were curled in the narrow space, still wearing the clothes described in his final note. Beside the body was a thick journal documenting nearly 6 months of survival behind the walls, watching the Hartleys live in his stolen house. But the journal entries didn't stop with his death. The final entries were written in different handwriting, dated just 2 weeks ago. Day 1 in the walls, found the previous occupant's remains. "This hiding place will work perfectly. The new owner seems nice. Haven't decided yet if I'll let him live." Day 8, he knocked back when I knocked. "Seemed scared." "Good. Fear makes people careless." The last entry was dated yesterday. Day 15, police are gone. House is quiet again. Time to introduce myself to the new owner properly. "Someone else is living in your walls," the officer said. "They've been watching you since you moved in." As if on cue, we heard movement inside the walls, not knocking this time, but footsteps. Deliberate footsteps moving through the hidden corridors, circling us. "Everyone out of the house," the officer ordered. "Now." We evacuated while the police called for backup. From outside, I watched them search every inch of the wall system with thermal cameras and search dogs. They found the access points, hidden panels that allowed someone to enter and exit the wall system from the basement and attic. They found a small cache of supplies, evidence that someone had been living behind the walls for weeks. But they didn't find the person. The thermal signature had vanished. I stayed in a hotel that night. The next morning, I received a text from an unknown number. I liked it better when it was just the two of us. You didn't have to involve the police. I know where you work, where you go for coffee, where your brother lives. The walls aren't the only place I can hide. It's been a week since they sealed the walls. I've moved into a new apartment across town, but the messages continue. Photos of me at work, at the grocery store, leaving my new building. Someone is still watching. Still waiting. And sometimes, late at night in my new apartment, I hear knocking from inside the walls. 3 deliberate raps. I don't knock back anymore. But I'm starting to think it doesn't matter. Because whoever was living in my walls has learned that there are spaces everywhere, between buildings, behind mirrors, in the gaps between what we see and what's really there. Last night, I found a note slipped under my door. New walls, same game. Sweet dreams, neighbor. If something happens to me, check the walls in your own house. Listen carefully at night. And if you hear knocking, don't knock back. Some things are better left unanswered.
When did messing with Alexa go downhill fast? I used to mess with my Alexa constantly. Not in a mean way, just dumb curiosity. It became sort of a game to see if I could get her to say something weird. I'd ask her nonsense questions like, would you ever betray me? Or, are you watching me right now? I even tried saying stuff backwards once to see if it would trigger a hidden response. Nothing ever did. It was just me being stupid at 1 a.m. I even named a group chat Alexa's Prison and added my friend in just so I could send him screenshots of the dumb stuff she said. The replies were always boring, but that somehow made it funnier. One night, I asked her to beatbox and she said, boots and cats and boots and cats. I lost it. So yeah, I started doing it every night before bed. I'd brush my teeth, get in bed, and then say something dumb just to see what would happen. Sometimes I recorded it in case anything glitched. It never did. It was just a dumb tradition that made me feel like I had some weird connection to this little speaker. Then one night, I started writing a list of new things to try. Stuff like, Alexa, do you dream? And what color is my soul? I was trying to come up with the creepiest questions possible. At the bottom of the list, half as a joke, I wrote, what's behind me? I laughed at it because it sounded like something from a bad horror movie. There's no camera, no reason for it to know anything. I wasn't even planning to say it out loud, but right before I turned off the lights, I thought, screw it. So I leaned over, looked at the speaker and said, Alexa, what's behind me? There was a pause, not a lag, not a glitch, just silence. For 10 full seconds, nothing happened. I was about to laugh it off, thinking it didn't understand the question, but then suddenly, it said, a man in the corner. I swear my blood went cold. My whole body just stopped. I was sitting on my bed, facing the wall, with the closet behind me and the Alexa speaker just off to the left. I didn't even turn around right away. I just sat there, staring straight ahead, trying to breathe quietly. When I finally moved, I spun around and slammed the light on. Nothing. Closet closed, chair empty. I turned back to the speaker and said, Alexa, repeat that. She said, sorry, I didn't catch that. I checked the app on my phone. It logs every interaction. My voice input.
There's a knock on my door every night at 1:16 a.m. I live in a gated building. It started exactly 1 week ago. 3 deliberate knocks, perfectly spaced, at precisely 1:16 a.m. Not 1:15, not 1:17, always 1:16 on the dot. I live on the 8th floor of Riverside Towers, a luxury apartment building with keycard access, security cameras, and a doorman who works until midnight. After that, the building locks down completely. You need a keycard to get past the lobby, another to access the elevators, and a third to reach the residential floors. The first night, I assumed it was a neighbor with an emergency. Maybe Mrs. Chen from 8B had locked herself out again. But when I looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty. I opened the door anyway, checking both directions down the corridor. Nothing. No one. The emergency exit door at the end of the hall was still closed, its alarm intact. The elevator showed no recent activity, the floor indicator hadn't moved from the lobby level. Hello? I called softly, feeling foolish. Only silence echoed back. The second night, I was ready. I positioned myself by the door at 1:15, watching the peephole. At exactly 1:16, 3 knocks came, but I was looking through the peephole and saw no one. The knocks seemed to come from the door itself, as if someone invisible was standing directly in front of it. I yanked the door open immediately. The hallway was empty, just like before. On the third night, I called building security during the day to ask about late-night visitors. Sir, our logs show no one entered the building after 11:30 p.m. last night. The security guard, Marcus, told me. Are you sure you heard knocking? Positive. 3 knocks, 1:16 a.m. exactly. Marcus pulled up the security footage on his computer. Let me check the 8th floor camera from last night. We watched the timestamp approach 1:16. The hallway remained empty. No one approached my door. But at exactly 1:16, Marcus and I both heard it through the phone, 3 distinct knocks echoing from the video. What the hell? Marcus muttered. The camera shows nothing, but the audio picked up knocking. Has anyone else complained about this? Marcus shook his head, but something in his expression suggested he wasn't telling me everything. That evening, I decided to record the knocking myself. I set up my phone outside my door, positioned to capture anyone who might approach. At 1:16, the knocking came right on schedule. When I reviewed the footage, it showed an empty hallway, but the audio was crystal clear. 3 knocks. No source. On the 5th night, I tried a different approach. Instead of waiting inside, I stood in the hallway at 1:15, directly in front of my door. I wanted to see what would happen if I was occupying the exact space where the knocker should be standing. At 1:16, the knocks came from behind me. I spun around. My door was directly in front of me, maybe 2 feet away. The knocks had definitely come from the door, but I was standing exactly where anyone knocking would have to be. The sound had come from inside my body's space, as if someone had knocked from within me. I stumbled backward, heart racing. That's when I noticed something else, 3 small scratches on my door, right at the height where knuckles would hit the wood. They hadn't been there before. The next day, I visited Mrs. Chen to ask if she'd heard anything unusual. Oh yes, she said immediately. The knocking. Same time every night for about a week now. You hear it too? Of course. But it's not coming from your apartment, dear. It's coming from 8C. 8C was the apartment directly across from mine. But 8C had been empty for 3 months, ever since the previous tenant moved out suddenly. Are you sure? Mrs. Chen nodded. 3 knocks, 1:16 a.m. Always from 8C. I assumed someone new had moved in, but I never see anyone. I went down to the building office to ask about 8C. That unit is vacant, the property manager, Susan, confirmed. Has been since Mr. Rodriguez moved out in July. Why do you ask? I've been hearing sounds from that direction at night. Susan frowned. That's strange. The unit is completely empty. We cleaned it out after Mr. Rodriguez left. Would you like me to check it out? An hour later, Susan and I stood outside 8C with the master key. The apartment was indeed empty, no furniture, no belongings, nothing but clean carpet and bare walls. See? Nothing here, Susan said. Maybe the sound is carrying from another unit. But as we stood in the empty living room, I noticed scratch marks on the inside of the front door. 3 parallel scratches, exactly like the ones that had appeared on my door. Susan, why did Mr. Rodriguez move out so suddenly? She hesitated. He said the apartment was haunted. Claimed someone was knocking on his door every night at the same time. We thought he was having some kind of breakdown. What time did he say the knocking happened? 1:16 a.m. That night, I positioned myself in the hallway between my door and 8C. I wanted to determine exactly where the sound was coming from. At 1:15, I stood perfectly still, waiting. At 1:16, the knocking began, but not from either door. It was coming from inside the walls. 3 knocks, moving slowly from 8C toward my apartment, as if someone was walking through the wall space between units. I pressed my ear against the wall and could hear something else, footsteps, muffled but distinct, pacing back and forth inside the wall. The next morning, I researched the building's history. Riverside Towers was built in 1987 on the site of an older apartment complex that had burned down in 1986. 12 people died in that fire, trapped in their units when the single stairwell filled with smoke. The old building had been numbered differently. What was now 8C had been apartment 816 in the original building. One of the victims was listed as Maria Santos, age 34, found dead in apartment 816. According to the fire report, she had died trying to break down her front door, which had warped from the heat and wouldn't open. Her body was found with severe injuries to her hands from pounding on the door. The time of her death was estimated at 1:16 a.m. I called the fire department to get more details about the 1986 fire. That was a bad one, the retired fire chief told me. The building had code violations, inadequate exits, faulty alarm system. Several residents were trapped because their doors wouldn't open. The heat warped the frames. Do you remember anything specific about apartment 816? Oh yes. Poor woman in 816 beat her hands bloody trying to get out. We could hear her screaming for help, but by the time we reached her floor, it was too late. She'd been knocking on that door for hours, trying to get someone's attention. That night, I tried something different. At 1:15, I stood outside 8C and spoke to the empty hallway. Maria? Is that you knocking? At 1:16, the knocking came, but this time, it was frantic. Not 3 measured knocks, but rapid, desperate pounding that went on for almost a minute. I could hear scratching sounds, like fingernails clawing at wood. Then, faintly, I heard a voice, "Help me. Please. I can't get out." I pressed my hands against the door of 8C. Maria, the fire was 37 years ago. You're not trapped anymore. The pounding stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then, very softly, but I can still smell the smoke. I haven't heard the knocking since that night. The scratches on my door have faded, and Mrs. Chen says her nights have been quiet. But sometimes, when I walk past 8C, I catch a whiff of something burning. And I wonder if Maria Santos finally found her way out, or if she's still in there, somewhere between the walls, looking for an exit that was never there. The building management has decided to renovate 8C. They say they want to update it before finding a new tenant. But I think they just want to tear down whatever's left of apartment 816, and finally let Maria Santos rest.
Until 1986, doctors believed that babies could not feel pain, so they did surgeries on babies without giving them medicine to sleep or not to feel pain. Shocking history facts: no one knew about the last one. The reason that Allied forces had a net on their helmets was to reduce the helmet's shine when wet and to add additional camouflage. Would you rather live in World War II or marry the second person who appears when you click on share and then click on more? In the 13th century, Pope Gregory IV declared war on cats. He said that black cats were instruments of Satan. This action led to more rats, which caused more diseases. If you comment, well, TikTok will give you a warning. There was a German spy that was sent to Canada during World War II, but he decided to use his funds to move to Ottawa and then surrendered to Canadian authorities. However, they let him go because he didn't do any damage or even spying before the last fact. Follow us to get smarter. The leader of Nazis once pranked a high-ranking Nazi into thinking he was going on a suicide mission, causing him to escape.
What's the one random genetic trait you lucked out on? 1. I'm 43 now, and since I was a kid, I've been able to eat anything I want. Chips, pizza, pop, Twinkies, you name it, I can eat it. Amazing, I only weigh 450 pounds, should be much heavier. 2. After getting cancer, found out my DNA type doesn't spread it as easily as others. Saved me from chemo. 10 years cancer-free now. 3. One of my favorite flexes, I have 0 allergies. 4. Not exactly a win for me, but definitely a win for others. I have O blood and no diseases, so I can donate to anyone. 5. As a woman, my period is always 2.5 to 3 days, super regular, and I've never experienced extreme pain with it. Some discomfort, sure, but nothing that's ever stopped me from living my life. 6. My teeth are aligned. No braces needed. 7. Just got my fertility panel results back today. It screens for nearly 500 disorders and gene mutations, and I don't carry a single one. The doctor said it's super rare not to have at least a few recessive issues. Pretty cool. I can't wait to tell my parents they made a near perfect human. 8. My eyelashes, they're dark, curly, and don't require mascara. 9. Good skin. I've had small breakouts, but those are rare, never really had acne or anything of the sort. 10. All of my grandparents lived to be at least 100 years old. 11. I work in veterinary medicine and used to work in a cat-only specialty hospital. We would frequently get in diabetic cats, and I could always tell when a suspected cat was diabetic because of the smell. To me, diabetic cats always smell vaguely like that Waffle Crisp cereal. The vet I work with told me you can smell ketones. Apparently not everyone can smell ketones, and I can smell them very well. So if anyone needs me to smell their cat to see if they're diabetic, let me know. 12. I don't grow hair on my legs, armpits, my arms, basically anywhere but my head. I never have to shave. I don't even own a razor. 13. Thick hair. Sure, I shed like crazy every day, but my hair still stays ridiculously thick. 14. Dentist told me I have a special mineral makeup in my saliva which makes it very hard for me to get cavities. 15. Not sure if it's genetic, but I imagine it is. I have hypersomnia and can fall asleep whenever, and wherever, I want, no matter how much sleep I've gotten. I always get good sleep. And I still wake up relatively easily, no more difficult than anyone else.
Things girls do that they think are cute but are actually cringy. The last one will shock you. Duck lips are still a thing, apparently. Ladies, please stop doing duck lips. It's not cute, it's cringeworthy. When girls use Snapchat filters for everything, they're not cute. TikTok knows someone who is crushing on you. They are the first person that comes up when you click the arrow, then more. When girls steal a random dude's baseball cap and refuse to give it back as a way of flirting. It's really, really cringy. Comment, I don't, and let your keyboard finish the rest. You know those pictures where there are at least 3 girls who are all slightly bent at the waist, arched back and sticking their booties out? Girls, please, just stop it. You look like you have group scoliosis. Before this last fact, please like this video and hit the plus, as we may never see each other again. Now, saying, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best, is major cringe.
My voicemail plays back a recording of me screaming, but I never called. The first time it happened, I thought it was a glitch. I was checking my voicemail after work when I heard my own voice, raw, desperate, screaming words I couldn't quite make out. The timestamp said the call came from my number at 3:17 a.m. while I was asleep. I deleted it immediately. Probably some weird phone malfunction, maybe a pocket dial that picked up audio from a nightmare. But it happened again the next week. Same time, 3:17 a.m. This time the screaming was clearer. I could make out fragments. Please, no. And I can't, stop, help me. My voice, definitely my voice, but filled with a terror I'd never experienced. At least, not that I could remember. I started setting alarms for 3:15 a.m., determined to catch myself in the act. But every time I woke up, I was in bed, phone on the nightstand, no memory of making any calls. The call logs confirmed it though, outgoing calls to my own voicemail, lasting anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. The messages were getting longer, more detailed. In the most recent one, I could hear myself sobbing, begging someone to let me go back. There were other sounds too, scratching, like fingernails on wood, and a rhythmic thumping that made my skin crawl. I installed a sleep app to record myself at night. Every morning, I'd check the footage. Nothing. Just me sleeping peacefully through the night, never moving, never reaching for my phone. But the voicemails kept coming. My friend Jake suggested I might be sleepwalking, making calls from another room. So I started locking my phone in a safe before bed, hiding the key in my kitchen. The voicemails continued. That's when I really started to panic. How was I calling myself from a locked phone I couldn't access? I brought the recordings to a tech specialist. He analyzed the audio files and went pale. This is weird, he said, adjusting his glasses nervously. The metadata shows these calls are coming from your phone, but They're also coming from inside your voicemail system. Like someone's calling from a recording that already exists. What does that mean? I don't know. It shouldn't be possible. The messages were changing, becoming more specific. In the latest one, I heard myself screaming about being stuck in the loop and can't get back to the right time. I mentioned details about my apartment that I'd never told anyone. The loose floorboard in my bedroom, the water stain on my ceiling that looks like a bird. But the most disturbing part was when I heard myself say, he's listening to this right now. He doesn't understand yet, but he will. I nearly dropped the phone. How could a past version of myself know I'd be listening? I decided to stay awake all night, sitting in my living room with my phone in clear view. At 3:17 a.m., my phone didn't move, didn't light up, nothing. But when I checked my voicemail the next morning, there was a new message. This one was different. Quieter. I could hear myself crying softly, then whispering, day 47. I'm starting to remember now. The hospital. The accident. I think I'm not supposed to be here. I had no memory of any hospital or accident. I called my mom, asking if I'd ever been hospitalized. She was quiet for a long time. Honey, you were in a coma for 6 weeks after the car accident. Don't you remember? You woke up 3 months ago. My blood went cold. What car accident? The one on Highway 93. You called me, screaming, said someone was chasing you. Then the line went dead. They found your car wrapped around a tree 20 minutes later. I hung up and immediately called the hospital. After being transferred 3 times, a nurse finally found my file. You were brought in after a severe head trauma, she explained. Technically brain dead for several minutes before we got you back. Some patients experience temporal displacement afterward. Memory issues. Sometimes they feel like they're living in the wrong timeline. What does that mean? Sometimes their consciousness gets stuck between the moment of trauma and recovery. Like an echo. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I sat in my living room, staring at my phone, waiting for 3:17 a.m. When the time came, my phone rang. I answered. Hello? It was my own voice, distant and hollow. You're starting to remember, aren't you? Who is this? I'm you. From the accident. From the moment before everything went dark. I've been trying to reach you. I felt dizzy, nauseated. That's impossible. I'm trapped in that moment, the car spinning, the tree getting closer. I keep reliving it, over and over. But sometimes I can break through, call forward to where you are now. You're not real. This is some kind of breakdown. Check your rearview mirror. I wasn't in a car, but something made me turn around. In the black reflection of my TV screen, I saw myself, but wrong. Covered in blood, eyes wide with terror, mouth open in a scream. Every night at 3:17, the voice continued, you die in that car. And every morning, you wake up in a timeline where you survived. But I'm still back there, and I'm running out of time. What do you want? I want you to remember. Because if you don't remember the accident, if you don't remember dying, you'll slip back to that moment permanently. And I'll be free. The line went dead. I sat there shaking until dawn, then immediately drove to the crash site on Highway 93. When I found the tree, bark still scraped and gouged, memories started flooding back. The phone call. The terror in my voice as I called for help. The headlights gaining on me in the rearview mirror. The steering wheel jerking from my hands. The moment of impact. The moment I died. And the realization that I'm not supposed to be here. My phone is ringing again. It's 3:17 a.m. I know if I answer, I'll hear my own voice telling me it's time to come back. The voicemails have stopped. But the calls haven't.